The sister who couldn't say no. They say blood is thicker than water. But they never tell you what to do when that blood keeps cutting you. And you're the only one still bleeding. My name is Isabella Carter, but everyone calls me Izzy. And if you'd asked anyone who knew me a few years ago, they would have told you I was the good sister. The reliable one. The peacemaker. The fixer. If my older sister Leah forgot a birthday, I'd smooth it over. If she got into another fight with mom, I'd mediate. If her bills were late, again, I'd quietly cover them before she noticed. It was never asked outright, but always expected. That's the thing about being dependable, people stop thanking you. They just assume you'll keep showing up. And I did. For years. I showed up for Leah when she dropped out of college and moved back home. I showed up when she borrowed money to start a business that never got off the ground. I even showed up when she got evicted and needed a place to stay, because that's what family does, right? At least, that's what I believed. At first, I told myself I didn't mind. She was my sister, my best friend once upon a time. When we were kids, we'd share secrets under the blankets with a flashlight, whispering promises like, we'll always be there for each other. But somewhere along the way, that promise became one-sided. She'd show up when things were good, when she needed a ride, a couch, a place to hide from responsibility, but never when I was the one breaking. When my engagement ended abruptly, Leah was too busy to visit. When I got sick and needed help after surgery, she texted, "You'll be fine. You're strong." She said it like a compliment. But it felt like an excuse to disappear. People like me don't break loudly. We crack in silence. Quietly holding everyone else's pieces until we forget we're shattered too. The last straw, the moment everything changed, came one rainy Tuesday afternoon. Leah called in tears. Her voice was trembling, panicked. "Izzy, please, I messed up. My landlord's kicking me out. I have nowhere else to go." Without hesitation, I told her to come stay with me. I lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment, but I made space, cleared out my art supplies, shifted furniture, even bought her favorite brand of cereal like I always did when she was upset. She arrived the next day, dragging 2 suitcases and a cloud of chaos behind her. She looked exhausted, hair tangled, mascara smudged, still carrying that same reckless energy that made people forgive her faster than they should. "Thank you," she whispered as she hugged me. "I don't know what I'd do without you." I smiled, holding her tight. "You'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together." But deep down, something small and wary whispered, "You always say that, Izzy." And she never does. The first week was fine. We cooked together, watched movies, stayed up late talking like we were kids again. It almost felt like healing. But then, the old patterns returned, like clockwork. She forgot to look for a job. She borrowed my clothes without asking. She left dirty dishes in the sink for days. And every time I tried to talk to her about it, she'd sigh dramatically and say, "God, Izzy, you're so uptight. Relax. Not everything's a crisis." Maybe not for her. But for me, a woman juggling a full-time job, bills, and emotional exhaustion, it was. Still, I let it slide. Because that's what I always did. If you've ever been the one who gives too much, who shows up even when no one ever shows up for you, subscribe. Because you deserve to be heard too. 3 months later, I came home early one day and found Leah on the couch, scrolling through her phone, a glass of wine beside her. "Did you send in the job applications?" I asked. She didn't even look up. "No, I'm waiting for something better." I stared at her. "Leah, you've been here for 3 months. You promised." She groaned and rolled her eyes. "You're seriously doing this now?" "I told you, I just need time. Not everyone's as perfect as you, Izzy." Something in me snapped, not loud, but final. I took a deep breath. "You're right," I said quietly. Not everyone's perfect. But not everyone gets unlimited chances either. She looked up, surprised. What's that supposed to mean? It means you have a week to figure out your next move. I can't keep doing this. Her face changed, disbelief, then anger, then that familiar mix of guilt and manipulation. Wow. After everything I've been through, you're just kicking me out? I didn't answer. Because I'd finally realized, she'd never see it as everything I'd been through, too. When you stop letting someone take advantage of your love, they call you heartless. But the truth is, your heart just learned how to close the door. That night, she slammed her door shut and didn't speak to me. And for the first time in my life, the silence felt like peace, not punishment. But what I didn't know then was that this decision, my quiet rebellion, would tear our relationship apart in ways I never saw coming. Because people like Leah don't handle accountability. They rewrite it as betrayal. And soon, I'd learn just how far she'd go to make me regret saying no. I thought setting a boundary would fix things. I didn't realize it would break everything first. The truth? I repeated, trying to stay calm. You left out the part where you've been here for months, not paying rent, not trying, when love turns into a weapon. It's strange how fast love can twist. One day, you're someone's safety net. And the next, you're their villain for finally stepping away. The morning after I told Leah she needed to move out, the air in my apartment changed. It was heavy. Dense. Unspoken words thickened the air like humidity before a storm. She didn't look at me when I left for work. Didn't text, didn't even make her usual morning coffee. I told myself it was just shock. That maybe a part of her needed to hit rock bottom to finally wake up. I wanted to believe that this boundary, this act of self-respect, might be the very thing that helped her grow. But I was wrong. Instead of facing the truth, Leah turned the story into something else entirely. 3 days later, my phone buzzed with a text from our cousin Jenna. Heard you kicked Leah out? Seriously, Izzy? After everything she's been through? I froze. How did she know? Then another message followed, this one from our aunt. Your mother's worried about Leah. Maybe you should be more understanding, she's struggling. I scrolled through the messages, my chest tightening with each one. The story had already spread, and I didn't even have to ask who started it. Leah had always been good at playing the victim. It was her superpower. And now, she was using it to paint me as the cold, selfish sister who kicked her out when she needed me most. The people who drain you will never tell others what they took. Only that you stop giving. When I confronted her that night, she didn't even look guilty. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, eating the last slice of pizza I'd bought the night before. Leah, I said quietly. Why are people calling me, asking why I abandoned you? She sighed dramatically, as if I was the one exhausting her. I just told them the truth. You said you didn't want me here anymore. Sorry if that makes you look bad. Oh my God, Izzy, she snapped, standing up. You always have to make yourself the hero. You just can't stand looking like the bad guy, can you? Her voice was sharp, cruel in that effortless way people use when they know your soft spots. You think you're better than everyone, just because you have your own apartment and a steady job. You've always looked down on me. That hurt, because it wasn't true. I'd spent years bending my back to lift her up. But in her world, if she wasn't the victim, she had to make someone else the villain. If you've ever been turned into the villain for protecting your peace, subscribe. Because sometimes self-respect looks like betrayal to people who only understood your love when it served them. For the next few days, things spiraled. Leah barely spoke to me. She'd stomp around the apartment, slamming doors, leaving dirty dishes everywhere like some silent protest. Then one night, I came home and found her room empty. Her clothes were gone, her suitcase missing. There was just a note on the kitchen counter. You win. I'm leaving. I hope you're happy now. I sank into a chair and stared at it for a long time. Happy? No. Relieved? Maybe. But beneath that, something deeper, grief. Because even though she'd left, her absence didn't feel like peace. It felt like loss. Not of her, but of the idea that maybe someday she'd be the sister I kept waiting for. Weeks passed. Then came the whispers. Our family group chat lit up with messages, little jabs disguised as concern. Leah's staying with friends until she gets back on her feet. It's a shame her own sister couldn't help longer. Some people just forget where they came from once they get ahead. Each one landed like a slap. No one asked for my side of the story. Because in families like mine, the quiet ones are always easier to blame than the loud ones are to confront. It's strange how the person you loved most can teach you what silence really sounds like. It's not peace. It's disbelief disguised as calm. One Sunday, I decided to visit my parents. I needed to clear the air, to explain that I hadn't abandoned Leah. But the moment I walked through the door, I could feel the tension. Mom didn't hug me right away. Dad avoided eye contact. And there she was, Leah, sitting at the kitchen table like she belonged there, sipping coffee as if nothing had happened. "Hi," I said cautiously. She looked up, expression neutral but smug. "Oh, hey. Didn't expect you to come by." Mom frowned. "Izzy, I think you two need to talk. Leah told us what happened." "Of course she did. I just wish," Mom continued carefully, "that you'd found a way to be more patient with her. She's going through a lot." I felt my chest tighten. "Mom, I've been patient for years. I helped her through everything." "She said you kicked her out when she had nowhere to go," Dad interrupted. I turned to Leah. "Are you serious? You told them that?" She didn't even blink. "You did kick me out. Why are you acting surprised?" Something inside me snapped, quiet but final. I stood up, grabbed my purse, and said, "You know what? Believe whatever story makes you feel better. I'm done defending myself." As I turned to leave, Leah muttered under her breath, "You always were dramatic." I paused at the doorway, trembling. Then I looked back and said, "And you always were ungrateful." That was the last day I tried to explain myself to people committed to misunderstanding me. You can't heal in the same room where they keep reopening your wounds. That night, I went home to an empty apartment that finally felt like mine again. No noise. No tension. Just space, and the faint ache of starting over. But what I didn't realize then was that peace has a price. And soon, Leah's chaos would find its way back into my life. In a way that would test everything I thought I knew about forgiveness, love, and family. You can love someone endlessly. And still have to walk away. But what happens when walking away doesn't mean they stop following you? The betrayal that broke the silence. I thought walking away would end the story. But some people don't let you walk away. Not until they've rewritten it to make you the villain they need you to be. Months passed after that confrontation at my parents' house. I thought the silence that followed meant peace. I stopped checking Leah's social media, muted the family group chat, and buried myself in work. Every day felt like reclaiming a small piece of myself, a piece I hadn't realized she'd taken over the years. I started going to yoga classes, cooking again, even painting, something I hadn't done since college. There was still sadness, sure, but there was also stillness. And in that stillness, I finally started to breathe again. Then came the betrayal I never saw coming. It started with a phone call from my manager one Thursday morning. His voice was tight, uneasy. "Izzy, can you come into my office? There's something we need to discuss." I felt that familiar drop in my stomach, the kind that comes before bad news. When I walked in, he gestured toward his computer screen. "I received an anonymous email. It accuses you of misconduct, of misusing company funds." "What?" I said, stunned. "That's impossible. I would never." He held up his hand. "I believe you. But HR has to investigate. I leaned forward, heart racing. Do you know who sent it? He hesitated. It came from an untraceable address. But it mentioned details about your personal life. Things only someone close to you would know. My blood went cold. He turned the screen toward me, showing the email. There it was, paragraphs of lies, describing me as controlling, vindictive, emotionally unstable. And at the bottom, one line that made my hands tremble. You might want to ask her sister about how she treats people. Leah. I didn't need proof. I knew. There's a special kind of pain reserved for the moment you realize the person you protected the most is the one holding the knife. That night, I sat on my bed staring at my phone, scrolling through old messages from Leah. The late night thank yous. The desperate, you're all I have. The fake apologies. Every word suddenly felt like a script, one she'd used to keep me playing my role. I didn't call her. I didn't even text. Because there's no way to reason with someone who's convinced the story ends with your destruction. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. A few days later, our mother called. Her voice was shaking. Izzy, why are people saying you stole money from your company? Leah said she heard. Mom, stop. I could barely speak. She started it. There was a pause. Then a sigh, not angry, not sympathetic, just tired. You girls need to stop this. You're tearing the family apart. That was the moment I realized. In some families, the truth doesn't matter as much as the illusion of harmony. And I wasn't willing to keep my silence to preserve theirs anymore. If you've ever been blamed just because you refuse to stay silent, subscribe. Because peace built on lies isn't peace. It's just a prettier kind of pain. The HR investigation lasted 2 weeks. They cleared me completely, of course they did. I had documentation for everything. But even after I was vindicated, the humiliation lingered. I'd spent years building a reputation for integrity. And in a few sentences, Leah had almost destroyed it. I took a week off work after the ordeal, packed a small bag, and drove out to a cabin by the lake. For the first time, I didn't tell anyone where I was going. No calls. No texts. No explanations. Just me, and the quiet. At night, I'd sit on the porch watching the water reflect the moonlight. And I'd think about all the times I'd bailed Leah out, all the times I defended her. All the times I'd chosen peace over truth. That was my biggest mistake. I'd confused keeping the peace with keeping quiet. On the 4th night, I got a message from an unknown number. It was short. I'm sorry. Please don't block me. I didn't mean for it to go that far. Leah. I didn't respond. Then another message came. I was angry. I thought you'd ruined my life, but I ruined my own instead. Please, Izzy. I need to talk to you. I put the phone down, closed my eyes, and took a long, slow breath. Because for the first time in my life, her apology didn't move me. It didn't make me want to fix things or rush to comfort her. It just made me tired. You know you've healed when their apology isn't the closure you need. The silence you built inside yourself already gave you that. When I got back to the city, I met with HR again to finalize some paperwork. As I left the office, I saw an envelope taped to my car windshield. It was from Leah. Inside was a letter, handwritten, shaky, tear-stained in places. Izzy, I don't know why I keep destroying the people who love me. I thought you'd never stop taking care of me, and when you did, I panicked. I said terrible things. I made you the villain because I couldn't face being the problem. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know, you were the only one who ever really loved me. I sat there for a long time, the letter trembling in my hands. Part of me wanted to tear it apart. Another part wanted to drive to her and scream. Scream about how much she'd hurt me, how much I'd lost because of her selfishness. But instead, I folded the letter and whispered, "I forgive you." Not for her, but for me. Forgiveness doesn't mean they deserve a place in your life. It just means you deserve peace in your own heart. After that day, I didn't reach out again. Neither did she. And yet, I didn't feel alone anymore. Because sometimes, letting go of the person you always saved is how you finally save yourself. She thought I'd always be there for her. But I finally realized, being there for someone doesn't mean standing where they keep burning you. Quiet closing, gentle mercy. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it's the gentle closing of a door so both people can finally breathe. When I folded Leah's tear-stained letter and set it on the passenger seat, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: clarity. Not triumph. Not bitterness. Just a calm, factual knowledge that I had done everything I could without losing myself. The weeks after that letter were intentionally small. I let the world continue without staging any dramatic scene of reconciliation or revenge. My days were full of work deadlines, yoga at dawn, slow dinners, and painting in the evenings. Colors splashed onto canvas in ways my life hadn't allowed when I was constantly checking the phone, waiting for a meltdown. The truth was, I still loved Leah. Love, like grief, doesn't evaporate because you set a boundary. But love matured. It learned to ask different questions. How do I preserve my peace? How do I care without being co-opted? How do I hold someone's worth without shouldering their debt? One cool morning, 3 months after the HR scandal cleared, I got a message from an old friend who volunteered at a community counseling center. They were running a program for people rebuilding financial trust, workshops about accountability, budgeting, and repairing relationships damaged by betrayal and addiction. Would I speak? They asked. Share my experience? Help others learn how to set healthy boundaries? I said yes without hesitation. Standing in that small classroom months later, looking at a group of people with tired eyes and hopeful faces, I realized I had something useful to offer beyond a cautionary tale. I could explain the practicalities: how to document your finances, how to freeze accounts, how to say no without cruelty. But I also talked about the emotional curriculum, how to grieve the version of someone you thought they'd be, and how to make peace with imperfect people. After the session, a woman in the back approached me quietly. She said, "I let my sister take advantage of me for years. I thought loving her meant denying my own needs. Thank you for saying it's okay to be selfish sometimes." Her words landed in me like a benediction. I walked home lighter that day than I had in years. If this story about reclaiming yourself resonates, subscribe. Because sometimes saving yourself is the bravest kind of love. Meanwhile, Leah's life took a different arc, slower, harder, and stripped of the easy comforts she'd used to mask consequences. The anonymous email had bruised me, but it also forced her to face that lavish performance of victimhood had a cost. Friends who'd kept her seat at their table started to drift when the money stopped, or when their tolerance wore thin. The men she'd relied on for quick validation moved on when there was no longer glamour to leech. I heard about it in small, second-hand ways. A mutual friend mentioned Leah had moved into a modest studio and was working 2 part-time jobs. Mom called once and admitted, haltingly, that Leah had begun attending counseling. She said she wanted to stop breaking people, Mom said. She sounded scared, but honest. Scared and honest, I thought, are a better starting place than unrepentant and entitled. It didn't undo the past. But it did suggest a path forward. One Sunday, months after the letter, I drove to the little studio with a loaf of bread and a nervous kind of hope. If you're picturing capitulation or dramatic embrace, that's not what happened. Leah opened the door with hair piled on her head and flour on her cheek, having decided to bake bread in a bid to make extra cash. She looked smaller and steadier. Not broken, just more visible to herself. "Hey," she said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I brought bread," I said, offering the bag. "And a spare set of sheets if you need them. Thought you might like company while the dough rests." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in." We ate slices warm with butter and sat across from each other like strangers familiar with the same furniture. Leah's eyes were raw, and when she spoke she didn't perform. "I've been in counseling for 6 months," she said. "I'm not cured. I don't expect you to trust me right away. I just wanted you to know I'm trying." That trying looked like concrete things now: a budget she showed me on her phone, a list of appointments she'd kept, receipts of money she'd returned for things she'd misused. She'd made calls that once would have been orchestrated by me, landlords, a restitution plan, a volunteer slot at a food bank. It was tedious mercy-making on her part, the only kind that counts. "I'm proud of you for showing up," I said honestly. "That's the hardest part. But pride isn't permission. Trust is earned over time." She nodded. "I know. I'd like to start earning it." There is a strange dignity in accountability. It's quiet, sometimes ugly, often repetitive: attending meetings, filling out forms, apologizing again and again, not because you want to be forgiven, but because you want to become someone who doesn't repeat the harm. Over the next year, I watched Leah do the work. She faltered. She called late at night with panic about money. She made terrible decisions. But she also kept going to therapy. She paid back small amounts when she could. She learned to cook meals she could actually afford and finally stopped selling dreams to strangers. The family's posture softened in small increments. Mom no longer made excuses for Leah's missed responsibilities. She began asking hard questions and holding space for the practical steps Leah needed to take. Dad, gruff and slow, accepted small updates and seemed relieved when Leah did not ask for his retirement fund. The apologies, when they came, were halting and imperfect. But they were there. What surprised me most was the way forgiveness changed for me. It was no longer theatrical, a grand pronouncement over Christmas dinner. It became practical. I let Leah have a key to my spare room again, but only after she'd shown months of fiscal responsibility. I agreed to co-sign a small entry-level lease when she saved half the deposit herself. We made agreements in writing, repayment plans and chores listed on a whiteboard in the kitchen. Boundaries became the grammar of our new relationship, not a punishment. One evening, as dusk softened the apartment windows, Leah turned to me and said quietly, "I used to think you were the problem. Too rigid, too judgmental. Now I see I was the problem. I could have loved you without draining you." It stung to hear what she thought, but it also felt like reaching land after a long swim. "We both made mistakes," I said. "But you're doing the thing that matters. You're choosing work over drama." She smiled like a person finding her footing. "Thank you for not giving up on me entirely." I reached for her hand, but this time, it felt different. I wasn't holding on to pull her forward. I was offering steady support while she walked her own path. Being there for someone doesn't mean being at their beck and call forever. Sometimes the truest, kindest act is to love someone enough to stop protecting them from the consequences of their choices, and then to stand beside them while they rebuild. We didn't have a cinematic reconciliation. We had quiet Saturdays, small forgivenesses, and an agreement to be both honest and practical. When Leah celebrated a year of steady work, we took my mother out to a casual dinner and spoke about trivial things like new recipes and paint colors. There were still shadows, old jokes that landed wrong, a flare of resentment when money tightened, but overall, the atmosphere felt human and sustainable. The truth I'd learned and now tried to model for others, in that counseling room and in my quiet life, was this: love with boundaries heals more than indulgence ever could. Forgiveness can be generous without being naive. Mercy can exist alongside accountability. A year later, Leah baked a loaf of bread, cut 2 thick slices, sat across from me, and said, "You were right about one thing, Izzy. I needed to learn to be there for myself before I could be there for anyone else." I nodded. "And I needed to learn that you could, in your own time." We ate quietly, the clink of cutlery like a small benediction. Outside, the city moved on, lives intersecting and diverging in their messy, beautiful rhythms. Inside, 2 sisters found a new rhythm too, one of mutual respect, practical love, and the kind of forgiveness that lets both people breathe. If you're holding a hand that keeps burning you, remember, Letting go is not cruelty. It's an act of preservation. And sometimes, it's the only way everyone finally learns how to be present.